Waverly Knobs Entertainment presents the Branch Out Podcast with your hosts Evan Charles Anderson and Tatiana Ivan. We discuss all the exciting facets of digital media and marketing for businesses and professionals. Our goal is to empower you so you can increase your knowledge, engagement, and brand identity. Let's get ready to branch out. Branch Out, the digital media and marketing podcast with Evan Charles Anderson
and Derek Sawaya.
And today we have a very special guest. We have Dave Gerhardt, who is the host of the podcast Tech in Boston, which you can check out at techinnboston.co. And he's also the growth marketing lead at Drift. How's it going, Dave?
It's going awesome. Thanks for having me.
We look forward to you teaching us a little bit more about the podcast, as well as maybe give some insights into all the entrepreneurial and startup communities within Boston.
It's fun to be on the other end of this for once. So,
well, excellent. Well, my first question is how did you come up with the original concept of the podcast Tekken Boss? What really kind of motivated you, that final decision maker, to say, you know what, I need to do this?
I had kind of, since graduating college, I had been interested in tech and startups, and at the time, I had just started working at a really early stage company here in Boston. I was trying to get involved in the startup community, and so I started. I had a commute about 30 minutes each way, and so I started listening to podcasts, and I really like listening to interviews with startup founders or just people that were working at companies in the tech space, but. Every interview was always about some founder in San Francisco or basically anywhere except Boston. And at the same time, I had been going to a lot of events, networking, meeting a lot of people in the startup community in Boston because of my job. And I was like, man, there's a lot of interesting stories here. It would be really cool, and I bet you people would be interested if somebody did a podcast about startups in Boston. But, I did what most people do, which is I just tweeted out the idea because I didn't actually want to do it myself. I just wanted to let people know I had this idea. And a bunch of people actually just responded, and they were like, "Yeah, you should do it." And I was like, "Oh, I never really thought about that. I have no idea how to do a podcast. I'm not really in the mood to take something on extra." But a bunch of people pushed me to do it, including my boss, the CEO of a company called Privy, Ben at the time, and he said, "Hey, just do it once a week. Do it every Friday in our office. You have a place to do it." And so, spent the weekend. Reading every single article online about how to start a podcast, confused myself for 48 hours, and then borrowed a USB mic from somebody that I knew and recorded the first episode.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's awesome that you decide, you know what, I'm going to be an entrepreneur myself and really jump in and start the podcast like that.
I had always wanted to have like a side project, just because I always envied people that had something to tinker with outside of work, because, especially earlier in your career, you don't always have the freedom or the autonomy to kind of do whatever the hell you want. So I'd wanted to start a side project, but I didn't really have like a topic that I was particularly passionate enough about. I could start a blog where I talked about marketing, but kind of everybody does that. And so when I had the idea for Tekken Boss, I was like, this is the perfect thing for me to kind of tinker on. So that's kind of why I wanted to do it.
There's so much talent in Boston that the fact that, we kind of get overlooked is kind of a shame. So it's fantastic that you offer something like this to give a voice to those entrepreneurs and startups that are so very prevalent in the Boston community.
It's really funny to fast forward to today. I've done 60 episodes, and at least 3 or 4 times a week I get an email from like PR agencies or just people that are trying to pitch me their news. And I'm like, I'm not a media person. Like, I don't know what you want me to do with this. I can't attend your event. Like, I got to work and do other stuff, but it's flattering that you reach out to me.
Well, I guess that goes actually perfectly to my next question, which is, how have you seen the podcast evolve over time since you first started?
I think mainly, to be completely honest, I think I'm just a better host. Like, I'm more comfortable doing it. Just kind of like anything, the more you do it, that's the biggest part, is people that listened on day one through the ups and downs and that listen today. It sounds like I know what I'm doing, at least for the most part. But really, I think I don't have to do as much prep. I kind of know I know what I want to get out of it each episode, and I used to do a ton of prep, which is great. I don't think you can prepare enough for interviews, just in case. But I have a better idea of what I want to get out of it going in, and the conversations are much more natural, and I just overall enjoy doing it.
I think that's really important, especially with a subject like this. You really have to enjoy it or really have a passion for it in order for it to really work out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely hard. One of the tough parts about having a side project that now has an audience is that I kind of have a expectation of, I got a text message the other day from, a mentor of mine, and he said, hey, like, you're really slacking on the podcast lately because I've just been super busy with Drift and everything we have going on here, and every now and then I get a wake up call like that, like, man, people do actually listen to this thing, and so it's important it keeps me going for sure.
Yeah, you have no choice but to go.
I have no choice, yeah. And funny story is when I started Tekken Boss, and I did probably 5 or 6 episodes. The response was good, but I didn't really love it, and I wasn't super proud of it. And so just kind of stopped. It was in the middle of the summer. I had other stuff to do, and I just stopped doing it. And when I stopped doing it, I got like 3 or 4 emails from complete strangers that were like, "What happened to that podcast you were doing?" And that was really like a game changer for me to know that, like, I created something that people that weren't my mom or my wife or somebody else cared about this thing, and so that really helped me kind of want to double down on this, and since then I've committed to try to do a good job.
And yeah, that's definitely true. And thinking back to all the great guests you've had featured on Tekken Boston so far, can you share some of the most memorable experiences you've come across through your podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to do the selfish thing and tell people to go listen and catch up on episodes. But I think the coolest part is just meeting different people from all different types of companies, and really realizing that, like, nobody grew up or was born as an expert in anything. And so I've interviewed 60 people, and they all have different stories, but they all have the same story, which is basically like, look, I didn't know anything until I started this company or I did this job, and I spent time doing this every day, because I think we live in this world right now where, like, everybody wants a growth hack, or everybody wants like some tactic, or they want to know what's the exact playbook. If you're listening and you're like, I want to start a podcast, okay, Dave, tell me exactly how to grow a podcast. Even if you follow the exact playbook that I use, it might not work for you. And so I think that's the world that we live in, and it's really cool to talk to all these different people who just, like, don't believe in that at all, because they have lived this every single day, and the only way that you learn this stuff is by doing. And so it's really cool to hear that time and time again from all the different types of people that I interview, whether it's an investor or a CEO or a VP of marketing. It doesn't matter. They all have that kind of same takeaway.
That is so very, very true. It's not like a recipe. You can't just say, well, I want a pinch of finance. I want a dash of an energy, and and it all just kind of comes together, and all of a sudden, poof, you have a company or a podcast or some other kind of service or product that you're trying to provide. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that at all.
And if it did, then those people who are always giving those talks, why don't they have 20 successful podcasts or 20 successful businesses, right? I love listening and reading all that stuff too about how X person grew, or here's my formula for growing a blog to 100,000 visitors. But, like, if playbooks could be applied to all this stuff, then why don't those people just do that over and over again? And the truth is, because it's not that easy.
Funny, because I follow a few different companies on Facebook, so I get the Forbes updates and Entrepreneur updates and Inc. And each one of them says, oh, well, entrepreneurs need at least 8 hours of sleep, or here are these successful entrepreneurs that get 6 hours of sleep. And, here's these people that avoid sugars and they become successful entrepreneurs, and just all this stuff that contradicts one another. But in the end, I do believe that, just as you're saying, you really have to just find your own flow and what works best for you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I could tell you exactly my morning routine and what I do, but I don't think that's going to have any, implication on how successful you are if you follow that.
So we don't have to know when you brush your teeth.
No, I do. I usually don't brush my teeth, so we're good.
Well, there you have it, folks. The way to get $1 million right off the bat: don't brush your teeth.
Yeah. Hey, if I had $1 million, that would be. Thank you for letting me know.
So, based off of all that experience that you've culminated from working on the podcast and talking with these individuals, and knowing that it's not a specific recipe, where do you see the startup community going in the next, say, 5 years for Boston?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. So I think for the next 5 years, I think I think what we need is we need a couple more pillar companies here in Boston. And by pillar company, I mean like who is the next HubSpot, for example, a company that's created thousands of jobs here. They have $1 billion worth of value, a well-known brand. Because I think what you see in every city that has companies like that is those are the companies that spawn out other companies. And so that's what we want to build here at Drift. We don't want to build the next small company. We want to build Boston's next pillar company, and that's because the amazing things that follow when you do that. And you already hear stories of now like the HubSpot mafia, founders from employees that worked at HubSpot that have now gone on to start other companies. Wayfair is another good example. The original example, or not the original example, but one of the most successful examples was a company called Endeca here that was acquired by Oracle, and now employees from Endeca have gone and start other companies. And so I think over the next 5 years, it's really who's going to be that next company in Boston, and how can we get more than one of them. But I think it starts with people that really want to do amazing things and build big companies here. I think that's the start for sure. And one of the topics that comes up on Tekken Boston all the time is how do we keep top talent here in Boston. I think that's a big piece of that too. We have to make sure that we keep pushing Boston and make sure it's the best place to build a company. And how do we get that message out to the people that are graduating from here and thinking about leaving? How do we keep those? How do we help those people stay here? And really just how do we do more PR for the Boston startup community? How do we shout about the companies that we're building and the amazing things we're doing here so we can help retain the best people and keep everybody here?
Well, and outside of those pillar companies, as you had mentioned, startups really need to make sure that they're doing two huge things successfully, which are two things that you're doing at Drift right now, which is generating proper traffic and garnering leads. So for entrepreneurs out there who are just launching themselves into this world, what are 3 major tips you want to offer them for generating traffic and leads?
I think the number one thing is that you have to genuinely understand and care about the problem that you're trying to solve for people. So the hardest thing to do is generate traffic and interest for something that you don't really care about and think about outside of 9 to 5. So I think number one is make sure that you have a real deep knowledge of the problem that you're trying to solve, and there's a reason for that. The closer you are, or the closer you've actually been to experiencing like what you're trying to solve for, always makes a huge difference. And really putting yourself, the closer you can put yourself in your customer's shoes, the better success you're going to have with marketing. Because at the end of the day, marketing really just comes down to having an amazing understanding of who your customer is or who your target audience is. The other thing that I think a lot of people forget about is that people want to do business with people that they like today. And so it's important to be a real person, like especially when you're doing marketing. So much marketing activity today comes from like somebody that is not a real person, or it's an automated email, or just like consumers don't fall for the hello, insert your name here, Dave email anymore. Like you have to be a real person. And I think the companies that understand who their customers are and how to come off as real and authentic are the ones that are going to win. And really the number 3 is just make sure that you're spending time experimenting. Like too many people just kind of pick one channel, especially when it comes to marketing, and just that's it. That's their channel. But I think there's so many new channels out there that you always have to be experimenting. But once you find one that works, stop chasing all of the new stuff and just double down on what you know works, and keep doubling down on that channel until you can't get anything else out of it.
Do you foresee any major changes that would or could potentially change how we generate traffic leads in 2016?
So I don't know what the next new channel is going to be, and I think it comes down to like where people's customers are. I've seen a lot of businesses playing around with Snapchat. I think it's cool, but I haven't had any success with generating real business from that. But it's interesting, and it's just it goes back to the whole point about being more human, that a lot of people are playing around with that channel. I'm a huge fan of Medium right now. I'm really bullish on Medium as a publishing platform. I just think that they're getting a lot of interesting people to share their thoughts, and Medium has been driving a ton of traffic to Drift, and we spend a lot of time doing that. So that's a channel that I'm spending a lot of time on as a marketer right now. And Medium has an audience built in. We've had a bunch of posts, single posts that we've published on Medium that have done between 20 and 30,000 views, and we don't get that much traffic on our entire blog. So to get 30,000 views from one post has me really want to spend more time on Medium.
Well, for results like that, I don't blame you for using it at all. Now, besides that tip of the importance of Medium, at least from what you've seen with Drift, what are some final words of wisdom that you have for entrepreneurs concerning marketing?
I think the biggest thing to remember when it comes to marketing is that at the end of the day, there's no marketing cure for sucking. And what that means is customer experience really is the new marketing. And so like if you have a product or service that people don't genuinely love and your product isn't amazing and your customer experience isn't amazing, no marketing tactic or marketing campaign is gonna save you from that. So I would start with like have an awesome product, have an amazing team, and then worry about the marketing tactics that you're gonna try to go about doing to scale your business.
Well, thank you very much, Dave, for sharing those words of wisdom. And thank you for joining us today on episode 21 of Branch Out.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Well, this is the end of episode 21 of Branch Out, the digital media and marketing podcast with Evan Charles Anderson
And Derek Sawaya.
We will see you next Sunday.